Kia orana, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
Who judged Wanga as the controversial figure? As far as we're concerned, we're not judges.
Pacific Islands Forum leaders confirm Baron Wanga will be leading the regional body. Also, a United Nations rep says America is committed to climate financing for the Pacific. And later on,
everyone needs to contribute to help the most vulnerable countries like those in the Pacific.
Don't lift the ban on oil and gas exploration, Vanuatu's climate minister says to New Zealand. The Pacific Islands Forum leaders emerged from their retreat on Aitutaki on Thursday local time, with their outcomes document finalised. The leaders welcomed the implementation plan for the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific, their blueprints for the Pacific-led development. On climate change, they committed to implementing the Paris Agreement and endorsed the creation of a Pacific Climate Finance Facility. There were discussions also on the Fukushima wastewater discharge. Leaders recalled the concern voiced about the exercise and noted the ongoing monitoring of the discharge by Japan and the IAEA. I spoke with Lydia Lewis shortly after the leaders' press conference on Aitutaki. Kia orana, Lydia. What's the latest?
Leaders have just emerged from a press conference on Aitutaki following what was an historic leaders' retreat. Mark Brown announced that the implementation plan for the 2050 strategy has been endorsed. This leads the way for the future of the Pacific people. I'm joined now by Tiana. We're just driving to the airport. Tiana, what does this mean for Pacific people and the Pacific way?
If we have a strategy going forward for what our region is going to be doing to combat all of the various issues our region faces, it means that we have a united approach to everything.
And also, one of the biggest outcomes to come from this meeting, and apologies for the sound in the background, but we're racing to catch a flight at the moment, is the appointment of Baron Wanga, the former Nauru president, as Secretary General. Before the leaders' retreat today, Baron Wanga left Rarotonga on a private jet. I got this confirmed from airport staff. They told me he left at around 11:30 Cook Islands time. Now, when questioned on this, why he was appointed such a controversial figure, someone who was criticised heavily for his handling and treatment of refugees in Nauru who were held there by Australia in offshore detention. They said that this was the outcome of the Suva agreement, that they are implementing it, and so Baron Wanga is now confirmed to be the next Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum. Also, another outcome of this is the confirmation that Tonga will host the next Pacific Islands Forum. Huakava Meliko Siosi Sovaleni sat next to the lineup of leaders. The Troika was sitting there, and confirmation was read out that he will host the next Pacific Islands Forum. There were a number of other outcomes as well.
What was the mood like among the leaders when they announced Baron Wanga's appointment?
The leaders were all sitting behind the Forum Troika as this was being announced. There were no notable head bobs or side eyes or anything, but more to come, I guess, on the coming days as we get their reaction.
Did any of the leaders address the Fukushima issue?
Yeah, the issue was addressed, but nothing new has come out of it. I was hoping to press the Forum chair on this issue because civil society has raised concerns and called for Japan, who is a dialogue partner, to be kicked off the dialogue partner list. But the press conference ran out of time and we were told we could not ask the question. And Shana, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm watching the leaders take off from Aitutaki. Their plane is revving up and heading to Rarotonga.
What's been the response from the local community?
Well, Tiana and I were out and about in the community today. This was a significant event here for the community. There are 1,700 people who live on Aitutaki. The pristine blue lagoon was shining today, but the people who were really shining were the locals. Tiana and I were taken in by a mama who Tiana knows very well. She has been involved in 3 Pacific Islands Forum. Is that right, Tiana? Tell us more, please.
Yeah, so this is the one and only Auntie Nane. She's been involved from the first ever forum that was held here in the Cook Islands with the retreat in Aitutaki and the last one as well as this one. And she has incredible photographs from these previous forums, which we will be chatting with her later on today at the airport before the flight, and we'll bring you some more feature coverage on her story. So today was historic, not just for the leaders and the outcomes of the Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Summit and Leaders Retreat, but also for locals as they reflect on their third Pacific Islands Forum that has been held in the Cook Islands.
That was Lydia Lewis reporting from Aitutaki. In other news, Tuvalu's Prime Minister Kausia Natano has confirmed Tuvalu and Australia will enter a bilateral treaty that offers special visas for Tuvalu citizens to work, study and live in Australia due to the threats of the climate crisis. In a joint press conference in the Cook Islands, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said 280 people from Tuvalu per year will be able to migrate to Australia under the Special Mobility Pathway. Mr. Albanese has described the treaty as groundbreaking. The agreement includes a $16.9 million commitment from Australia to expand Tuvalu's main island's landmass by 6% to help withstand sea level rise. The US representative to the United Nations says America is committed to delivering on climate financing for the Pacific. Attending the Pacific Island Forum, she also spoke with Nauru's President David Ariang before he abandoned the forum and left Rarotonga on a private jet. Elisha Foon spoke with US Ambassador Linda Greenfield-Thomas about climate funding promised by Biden and more.
Well, my first question is, how long will the Pacific have to wait for funding promised by Biden?
Look, the commitments that the president made during the meetings that we had in September are strong commitments. We're ready to deliver on those commitments. Part of those commitments is engagement. I'm the first cabinet person to come since we recognize the Cook Islands. I'm here to engage directly with leaders, to answer their questions, to address their concerns, and to ensure that we move forward on delivering the commitments that the president made.
When will you be ready to move forward?
I think we're ready now. Everything is not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a week, but it is happening, and you will see the results of that on a regular basis.
Are there any updates on Congress and this funding?
Congress is still working on the budget, as you know. We have, over the course of the past couple of weeks, the House has been working to elect a speaker. The speaker has now been elected, and we expect and hope that they will move forward on the president's budget requests in the coming weeks.
Solomon Islands leader Manasi Sogavadi has criticised the US for paying lip service and not following through. What is your response to that?
I am a follow-through. My presence here, I am committed as a member of the president's cabinet to ensure that the commitments we made are delivered on. As you know, we've also appointed a special envoy, Ambassador Frankie Reed, who is here in the region with me and is regularly in the region. And part of her job is to ensure that we deliver on the commitments that the president made.
Can you promise a date? When will the funding be delivered?
I can't promise a date. I don't think anyone can promise a date. What we can promise is that we will very aggressively and continuously work on delivering on the commitments the president made.
What else is the U.S. bringing to the Pacific table?
You know, we are here to listen at the concerns that are being raised. For example, we know that climate change is at the top of the agenda. I'm traveling with someone from Special Envoy Kerry's office who will be engaging on climate deliverables that we hope to make to address many of the climate concerns. I'm also traveling with Vice Admiral from the Coast Guard, who is working directly with island countries on many of their security concerns, working on addressing some of the areas that they have expressed the desire for assistance with, such as fisheries. So we're here as a team to ensure that we address the concerns that countries have, and all of us will go back with a strong commitment to ensure that we bring back to these islands what they've asked for.
When will the US ratify the Rarotongan Treaty?
Look, you know that President Obama sent the treaty to Congress, and that is something that they are working on. But we are committed to what's in the treaty, and we are taking actions to support the commitments made in the treaty.
Vanuatu this year has been hit by 3 cyclones. The US has been arguing loss and damages. How do you think the Pacific feel?
I think we are here, and we've heard the concerns that they have raised about loss and damages. As you know, we supported the resolution in the Security Council that addressed these issues. But let me just say, it is the U.S. that is always standing first whenever there's any kind of natural disaster, and any of the people in this region know that it is our disaster assistance through USAID, through our Coast Guard, and through others who will always be here immediately to support populations who are affected by natural disasters.
Is the US only interested in the Pacific region because it fears Beijing's efforts to expand its footprint?
We're interested because we think we have something to offer. We think we can be a good partner. We're not telling countries they have to choose between us and China. What we're telling countries is that they have a choice. And we want to ensure that the partnership we provide gives them a good choice to make. We're not saying to them to stop trading with China. We trade with China. We're not saying to them that they need to end their relationships with China, but what we want to make sure is they see positive results from those relationships that benefit the people of this region.
Civil society in Vanuatu is calling for the US to commit to phasing out fossil fuels. When will this happen?
Look, we have been actively engaged with Secretary Kerry's office in addressing these issues, and while we are committed to supporting those goals, the U.S. is doing other things to ensure that there are alternatives, and we're working with countries to address that. But at this time, I think we're not in a position to say it will phase out immediately, but I think eventually we want to see that happen.
How will the US be advocating for the Pacific ahead of COP28 and at COP28?
We're going to be engaging with the Pacific leading to COP28 in December. We're going to be working closely with countries so that as we go into those meetings in Doha in December, we have a strong sense of what your priorities are. We have a sense of how we can support your priorities, and we will be working with all of the countries in the region to actually accomplish that.
I have to ask, there was a protest yesterday on the steps of the forum around pro-Palestine. I have to ask about the humanitarian crisis. When will there be a ceasefire? Innocent women and children being killed.
We are strongly supporting the provision of humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza. We're working closely with the region, with Egypt, with Israel, as well as others to ensure that humanitarian assistance is delivered. You may have heard today an announcement in the U.S. of humanitarian pauses every day to get humanitarian assistance in, and we all want to see an end to this war. But we also want to see, when people protest, that they are condemning horrific actions that were taken by Hamas on October 7th. They're calling for the return of hostages, and they're calling for respect for humanitarian law and for the laws of war. These are the actions that we're taking both at the United Nations as well as in Washington.
Vanuatu's climate minister is urging the incoming New Zealand government not to restart offshore oil and gas exploration in Aotearoa. National had pledged to lift the ban on exploration if elected. Lydia Lewis has the story.
Ralph Regenvanu, Vanuatu's climate minister, emerged from a documentary screening about deep-sea mining with a call for Aotearoa to let go of any thoughts about oil and gas exploration.
Well, we call on them not to do it, to be in line with Paris, in line with 1.5 degree target. The science says you cannot do new fossil fuels.
When asked in Rarotonga about New Zealand's ocean protection under the incoming government, National's Foreign Affairs spokesperson Jerry Brownlee defended the policy.
We have very strong protections in New Zealand, and those would continue. There's no suggestion that we'd be changing some of those. The only thing that we've said is that we would lift the ban on offshore oil and gas, but that becomes then a commercial decision. It's not the government that would be going out to do that.
For Mr Regenvanu, whose nation has already been hit by 3 severe cyclones this year, his plea is for wealthy countries to better fund vulnerable nations in line with the Paris Agreement. Mr Regenvanu says there's a huge gap between financial commitments and what has actually been delivered.
Everybody, especially the countries that are much more wealthy than the others, developed countries, the ones with historical responsibility, the high emitters, everyone needs to contribute to help the most vulnerable countries like those in the Pacific.
Ralph Regenvanu also says it's important for Pacific nations to use the language phase out fossil fuels rather than phase down fossil fuels. He says the latter belies the urgency of the climate crisis and is being used increasingly by the likes of Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown, Niue Premier Dalton Tangelangi and most recently the President of Palau, Surangal Whips Jr.
The phasing out, you've got to have a replacement. You can't just phase it out and not have a replacement. And we've got to look at all sources. So what's most important is let's work together to find viable solutions so that we can all transition and phase out fossil fuels.
The other major environmental issue at this week's Pacific Islands Forum Leaders Summit is Japan's discharge of treated nuclear wastewater into the Pacific Ocean. Niue's Premier Dalton Tangelangi says he's disappointed Japan went ahead with the discharge before Pacific Islands leaders could properly meet to discuss the findings of their independent scientific review panel.
Well, we're just showing our disappointment, because the forum, we engage our own scientists to undertake our own investigations, but surprisingly that they weren't released. Well, it would have been nice if we had that discussion here.
A regional watchdog, the Pacific Network on Globalization, has issued a call for Pacific leaders to kick Japan, which is a forum dialogue partner, out of the regional body. Spokesperson Joey To told RNZ there is not enough evidence to support Japan's claims that its continual release of treated nuclear wastewater into the Pacific Ocean is safe. The Pacific leaders continue their retreat on Aitutaki today, which will conclude with a joint communique outlining the decisions agreed to on the future direction of the Pacific and its people.
That's Pacific Waves for today. To listen back, head over to rnzi.com/programs. We're also on Apple, Spotify and iHeartRadio podcasts. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, till Fasui Fua.